Start back with agenda item number 20, Commission Regulation 17-03, 2017 Black Bear Seasons. Wildlife Staff Specialist Pat Jackson for possible action. The Commission will consider adopting 2017 hunting season dates, open management units, hunting hours, special regulations, animal sex, legal weapon requirements, hunt boundary restrictions, and dates and times for indoctrination courses for the black bear. And Mr. Wakeling was going to introduce Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Brian Wakeling, Game Division Administrator. I wanted to remind the Commission and the public in attendance that the seasons that we've formulated here for the black bear, a mountain lion to follow, and the big game seasons following that are all formulated off of the work that had been done on the harvest guidelines up to this point. If the Commission has adjustments and what have you with the as we go through this, certainly we are open to any amendments that are suggested. Wanted to remind primarily the public on a couple of things. Almost every year we happen to get questions about why we have we're not setting harvest limits for bears or quotas for bears at this point. Routinely what we do is we set the seasons at this point in time. We'll come back in May, and at that point, after the seasons have been adopted, that's when we will use the data that we have available to make recommendations on the harvest limits and on the tag quotas that we might consider. That differs somewhat for the mountain lion. Mountain lion is governed largely by NAC. NAC sets the season dates for that, and so the season opens on March 1st, and it will run through the end of the following February, or if a harvest limit is achieved. And so for that reason, the season opens on March 1st. We treat the harvest limits at this meeting at the same time that we address the seasons. And according to the guidance provided by the Commission, we do those annually.
Thank you, Mr. Wakeling. Commissioner Drew.
Mr. Wakeling, just to clarify too, the season you're proposing is actually the same as what was adopted last year by the Commission, correct?
Commissioner Drew, the seasons that we are proposing, the season length on the bear is consistent with what it was last year. The season structure is somewhat different, and I'll let Staff Specialist Jackson detail that.
Welcome, Mr. Jackson.
I'm waiting for my presentation. There it is. Pat Jackson, Staff Specialist for the record. I understand that some commissioners need to catch a flight this afternoon, so I'm not going to be overly verbose, but I'm more than happy to be up here as long as possible and answer whatever questions you have. With that said, a short summary of the 2016 season. This past year we had 6 females and 5 males harvested. The mean age was 10 years, the female age was 8 years, and the adult female harvest was 55%. So those 2016 harvest statistics, as you can see, 2 parameters are categorized as light harvest, and that would be mean age of harvested females and mean age of harvested males, and then the percent females indicates a heavy harvest. If you look at that on a 3-year average, the percent females and the average age goes down, but it doesn't change anywhere in the parameter table. The proposed changes, historically, we've had the entire area open. I have a small typo here. Instead of 57, that should be 46 out of 82 bears were historically harvested in 291, and so that seems to be an area of focus for sportsmen. And so the difference that we are recommending here is to have 3 unit groups, and then as Division Administrator Wakeling mentioned, we would set those individual quotas at the upcoming commission meeting. But the season would be September 15th, ending December 1st. And then no other additional changes. Any tag holder can hunt any open unit until that group is closed. You would still have to call into the 1-800 number that currently exists to see if the seasons open as well as the units. Any legal weapon excluding shotguns can be used, and there's a mandatory indoctrination class for the hunter or their guide that draw a tag. So our recommendation is to adopt the Regulation 1703 for the 2017 black bear season as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Any comments or questions for Mr. Jackson from the commission? Commissioner Valentine.
Mr. Jackson, the breakdown with the 3 different units, that would be an indication to me that you're trying to manage the bear populations a little closely based on harvest.
Yes, yeah, we're trying to spread out the focus of removal from one area to the entire area, or the entire areas that they reside that can legally be hunted.
Further questions from commissioners? Commissioner Drew.
Mr. Jackson, and I don't know if Mr. Wakeling wants to chime in on this, but do you see any biological red flags? I mean, I know we have a heavy indicator in terms of the female portion of the harvest, but are we seeing any biological signs that would suggest we need a closure of the hunt at this time?
Pat Jackson, staff specialist for the record. I've discussed this at length with Brian and then also with Carl Lackey, the area biologist. An issue with small sample sizes, you know, our quota is 20 bears, and we've never reached that. And so an example I might give is if this room had 100 people in it and you took 20 out to look at how many males and females there were, that really wouldn't be most likely an accurate representation. In all other ways that we've looked at the population with encounters and times that we color bears, everything indicates that there's a 2-to-1 male to female ratio, and so I don't see a biological red flag, no.
And that would be based on, you know, not just kind of standard what you're looking at in terms of populations, but also some of the ongoing studies, whether it be what we heard through the predator plan yesterday or some of your other trap and transplant, but trap release, adverse conditioning, all those different parameters and management aspects.
That's correct.
Commissioner Hubbs.
So in terms of, I know we're not on quotas, but we're talking about seasons right now. Based on your guidelines the other day, it looks like we're using not the 10-year model trend, but more or less a 3-year population model trend to come up with the bear numbers. Is that correct?
Brian Wakeling for the record. This is essentially the same way we have been looking at that. We have not ignored the 10-year trend. That's still part of what's built into the plan. We are still looking at that data. However, what we have traditionally done is look at 3 parameters and there is one change this year based on the draft guidelines. We looked at the proportion of older age class females in the harvest historically. This year we're looking at the actual mean age of those. And so we're still looking at all of that information, which also assists us in assessing some of the questions that Commissioner Drew pointed out. You know, what other data are we using to assess this population? But these are the 3 primary parameters that we look at currently to assess whether or not our harvest is light or moderate or heavy.
I was looking down and I didn't know, did you report the numbers up there for the last 3 years at least? But did you have in terms of the 3-year trend for abundance or population estimates, did you report that?
I did not put that in the slides, no.
So was the population estimate from last year to this year increasing or decreasing?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Hubbs, we don't look at the population estimate on an annual basis. We tend to look at that on a longer term basis, like a 2 or 3 year basis. We'd usually try to prepare for that kind of information prior to the quota setting. We have not done that at this point in time. We still have the ability to substantially reduce tag recommendations or substantially reduce the harvest limit recommendation. And so we would look at that information prior to that, but it's very common for people to get focused on the portion of that population that exists within Nevada, and it's actually part of a much larger population. But all the information that we have to date is that population, while the growth has been stabilizing in recent years, we have not any indication that it's decreasing, but we have not analyzed that for this year.
And have you been looking at the condition or shape of the bears as they're reaching both extremes of the harvest periods for the season? Did you see any bears that came in toward the end of the season that were emaciated in some respect, or bears that came in early in the season that may have shown indication that they had cubs or anything like that?
Commissioner Hubbs, I don't have a recollection of every single check that we've had over the course of the past year. However, when I think about the reports that we received throughout the course of it, there may be an individual that was in poor condition. However, many of the animals that are harvested are, especially these older age class animals that are harvested on average, usually have, and I'm thinking of one in particular a year ago that was in excess of 700 pounds. Many of the animals, the preponderance of the animals that are being harvested are in body condition that is considered to be standard or better than standard for that time of the year.
My last question for right now, but in terms of the female bears, we harvested more female bears than male bears this year, slightly, it looks like. And were any of those female bears shown to be with cubs at a later time, or were there any suspicion that they had cubs?
Commissioner Hubbs, I can't answer that question conclusively. However, I have no recollection. Usually, routinely, when we find one that has evidence of lactation or cubs being with them, that's usually something that raises to our level of attention. I don't, I see Deputy Director Robb. He also pays very close attention to this, so I'd also ask him.
I post all those online. Every time I have a bear mortality, we try to get them online, and none of them indicated that they were lactating this year. So none at this time.
Further comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out for public comment. I want to remind the public comment that we're 3 minutes for an individual and 6 minutes for a group. And please keep your applause give everyone the same respect.
Thank you, Chairman Wallace. Craig Burnside, Douglas Cab. At our meeting, we voted to not recommend the season as presented. Our action was to recommend that the season be extended to December 31st, as it has been previously. That shotgun with a rifled slug be included as a legal weapon, that the boundary for the hunt units include all that area within the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit. And even though I know that we're not talking about quotas at this time, part of the action was to recommend that the harvest limit be maintained, but the number of tags be expanded to 51 so that one of the governor's tags could become available for bears.
Good morning, Elaine Carrick, speaking for myself from Reno, Nevada. This year will be the 7th year of the Black Bear Trophy Hunt, and I'm here today for the 7th time to oppose this hunt. It's been acknowledged that the hunt is not for bear management or population control or to prevent human bear conflicts. It is simply a trophy hunt. I'd like to share with you something that I just read online and pass it on to you. This is from the Wildlife Society's 23rd Annual Conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the topic was "A Changing Society Questions the Foundation of Wildlife Management." Conservationist Shane Mahoney explained how Cecil the lion was a trophy kill, and this brought to light the world's view toward wildlife, and the view of these amazing creatures is constantly changing. Quote, "Cecil's roar will never be silenced. It will never be silenced because the rise in public feeling, whether we agree or disagree or see it as naive, that change is happening in our society." Yesterday, Director Walsley announced some information about a petition, and I'd like to state that again for those who hadn't heard it. He received a petition signed by 144,381 people from both Nevada and across the country opposing the hunt. The trophy hunting is not acceptable to the public. I'd like to just now address two items specifically today. There's been an extremely high number of bears killed in Unit 291. And per NDOW, of the total 82 bears that were killed in the last 6 years of the hunt, 55% were killed in the pine nuts. Some states that allow bear hunts have limited the number of bears killed in different hunt units so that too many will not be killed in one area. And I would like you to consider doing that in Nevada. Second, there's been a high number of female bears killed in the last 3 years. That average of 42 females killed puts that number in the heavy harvest category. And also, this percentage of females does not take into consideration that a female bear may be pregnant at the time she's killed, and that fetus will be lost, and that bear number is not included. Also, a female may have a cub but may not be lactating, and the cubs do stay with that mother for up to 18 months. So there may be more bears being killed and female bears that are not being documented by the statistics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Carrick.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County. Just to start off with, our cab supported the black bear seasons in CR 17. My glasses off here. Is it 3 or 8? 1703. Sorry. As presented, and we appreciated the fact that the Department of Wildlife took into account the fact that we had a concern about over-harvesting in units, so they broke it into 3 different hunt units, which means when we do quota setting, we'll set quotas for those various hunt units, which addresses a concern that was just raised. But I think something that's been missing, and it was brought up at my cab, and I felt the need to expound a little bit, and I will for here because I think it's important. We keep hearing that the black bear is a trophy hunt, and there's no redeeming grace to it. And let's just start. 8 years ago, before we had any black bear hunt, where were we? We had a huge urban bear problem, no education, and we didn't know where the bears were coming from really, or where they were going, and we really didn't understand the population. We institute a black bear hunt, and we take a nominal number of bears out of the population, less than 20, every year that we've had this hunt. But what do we have? We now have a full-time bear specialist. We have bear-aware programs in the legislature. We have trash receptacles in communities and trash companies that are leading to bear trash receptacles. We have a program where we're collaring over 390 bears and watching their movements. We've been doing genetic studies. So when Brian Wakeling, the division chief, says, you know, we know that this is an interstate population, it is an isolated. We've learned all of this because we put sportsmen's attention on the bear. We can better manage it now than we could ever manage it, and we can assure that that population will be sustainable, either stable or grow into the future by the actions we've taken. And I think we forget that. It may be a hunt, but the redeeming grace of that hunt is we know more about the bear and it's better protected than it ever was. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Next public comment in Carson City.
Sean Shea, Washoe County. As always, since a lot of the bears are in our county, we get a little bit more discussion on this. We approved this agenda item, but we look to push that back to December 31st. And actually, at the last meeting when this was all brought up, Commissioner McNinch also mentioned, that's a good idea. Maybe we should add to the front of it, which is probably not a bad idea. So I thought that was a good idea, and I think that should be looked at too. If you guys aren't going to move it to December 31st, how it was, let's add some days onto the beginning of it, as McNinch had passed. Thank you.
Next public comment in Carson City.
Good morning. For the record, Fred Volz, representing No Bear Hunt Nevada. No Bear Hunt Nevada opposes the Nevada bear hunt in totality. However, recognizing the likelihood that a 2017 hunt will be conducted, we submit the following recommendations. First, disallow hounding as a method of killing. No Bear Hunt Nevada has presented the Wildlife Commission arguments in support of prohibiting hounding as a method of hunting via the petition process, public comment, at meetings, and written correspondence. We see no need to repeat these arguments here today, but wish to go on record as repeating this request. In your discussion, we would appreciate hearing your rationale for continuing a practice for the benefit of so few and at the disapproval of so many. We ask how you feel you benefit Nevada hunters or wildlife managers by turning a non-hunting public into an anti-hunting public by supporting methods of hunting demonstrated not just in Nevada, but in every state surveyed to be opposed by the majority of the public, who consider hounding to be unnecessarily cruel, unsporting, and unfair. Doing so not only reduces needed agency credibility and public support, but relegates wildlife management decisions to the ballot box via public initiatives and/or legislation. Decades of data from states such as Washington, Oregon, and Colorado show no adverse economic or management impacts from eliminating hounding as a method of killing. Please consider joining other western states such as Montana, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and California by implementing fair chase bear hunting that excludes the use of hounds. Second, maintain or shorten 2016 season lengths of September 15th to December 1st. In consideration of the unique physiology of bears and the timing of the hunt, we appreciated the Commission in 2016 shortening the season to end December 1st as well as in 2012, delaying the start date to September 15. We understand that at least the Washoe County Cab, and now we've heard today the Douglas Cab, has now voted to recommend lengthening the season. We support NDOW's recommendation to maintain the 2016 season, if not shorten it, and oppose lengthening it for the following reasons. First, NDOW Bear Committee findings establish the hunt exists for recreational purposes and serves no management goals such as population control or reducing human-bear conflict. To suggest lengthening the season because quota is not being met, as some in the cabs have, is not sufficient justification for extending the hunt. Second, average temperatures for most of the hunt units in the months preceding opening date range from 85 to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Considering that the majority of bears are killed using hounds, these prolonged chases in hot temperatures can cause avoidable and unnecessary heat stress to both bears and hounds. Pregnant bears can lose their embryos. According to Dr. Jonkel in his paper on hunting bears with dogs, quote, running bears in any kind of heat, warm weather could be very detrimental to the bears. Bears get brainstem damage, permanent destruction of their temperature regulatory system, which leads to death in 1 to 3 days. The subtle effects occurring well after the unit of work could mean that the bears die long after the hunt is over. Because bears have a large body size, no sweat glands, an insulating layer of fat, a dark skin, and a good insulating fur, they are particularly vulnerable to overheating, unquote. We would add that this stress occurs for any bear chased not just those killed. For these reasons and others, we oppose not only hounding as a method, but also starting the hunt earlier than the September 15. With regards to extending the season into December, we argue that wild Nevada bears, on average, enter winter dens before or around December 1st. Pregnant females are the first to enter dens, and because hounds are trained to follow their noses to game and are miles ahead of and out of the immediate control of their owners, a houndsman cannot, as a spot and stalk hunter might, make an ethical decision not to disturb a denning bear. And finally, female bears who are disturbed by hounds or otherwise have been demonstrated to abandon their dens. At such a critical time, if pregnant, this can cause harm to both the mother and her future offspring. Some of this harm can be avoided by ending the season by December 1st and or discontinuing the use of hounds. For these reasons and others, we ask that you end the season December 1st or even sooner. And to the point about how we have the trash all under control in the Tahoe Basin, it is most decidedly not under control. It is still completely out of the control, and nobody in this agency, in the California agency, or the Tahoe Regional Planning Authority has had the ability to do one thing about it on a basin-wide basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Next public comment in Carson City. Dr. Moldy.
Chairman Wallace, thank you for allowing me to attend this meeting and speak for the Nevada Houndsman Association. My name is Stephen Boren. First of all, we do see a need for the change with the, as far as the seasons being, the areas being split up into groups. Personally, I agree with that. However, when it comes as far as the hounding, that is the most popular method, and if hounding is removed from the hunt, then other methods of pursuit and or methodology, basically baiting, we would request that the commission entertain that and or adopt it, because you're limiting the methodology in which we're able to hunt. And it's not so much as a trophy hunt as some people are saying. I actually do eat bear meat, and there's probably going to be other people who have things to say, so I'll leave it to them.
Thank you. Dr. Moldy.
Mr. Chairman, Don Moldy, Reno, speaking for Nevada Wildlife Alliance. Three quick things. One is, before, well, I endorse the December 1st closing. There are better biological reasons than hunter opportunity reasons to leave December for the bears. The second thing, I wanted to thank the department, Director Wasley, Assistant Director Rob, and others who've put in a ton of work on this bear issue. It's sort of tangentially related to today's discussion, but they've done a great job. Progress is being made, and I wanted to publicly thank them. The other issue I want to talk about briefly is the ratio thing that you've already spoken about. The heavy harvest, light harvest, modest harvest, age-sex ratio chart for gauging where we are. As you saw today, there's one heavy harvest indication, which is the number of females killed, and two on the age side that were in the light category. And I'm particularly interested in this because this is the same conundrum that has dogged us with bobcat trapping for decades. It's nice to have the chart in a planning meeting and for display to the public is to convey the idea that there's some sense to this management thing. But today we have something I've seen many times before. You have one criteria which is heavy. And it should be an important one because it's females and they're the ones that have cubs. And to make it even more interesting, although it's a light harvest indicator, the age of the females being killed is old. And we all know that older bears are the ones that have cubs. Young bears, young female bears tend not to. So now the department, I predict in the May meeting, will do what the Bobcat people have done for years, which is they will use the light harvest indicators plus some conjectures and speculation and what we think we know to trump the heavy harvest indicator. And therefore, the chart will be regarded as showing a light harvest condition overall, even though one of the indicators is not that. So now I don't know what it takes to register with the department that a heavy harvest is occurring. Is it 2 out of the 3? Is it 3 out of the 3? What does one heavy item mean when it's particularly affecting females, older females, versus other indicators? So while I'm not criticizing the department for trying to come up with a sensible ratio scheme, I'm pointing out that it's not as smooth as you may think it is based upon what has happened with bobcats for many years, which is that a worrisome indicator is generally trumped by one that's not. So I think we'll see some more of this. I'll talk more about it in May. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moldy. Further public comment in Carson City?
I would, I'm good. I'd like to second the comments from No Bear Hunt Nevada, Elaine Carrick, and Don Moldy. I would also like to personally ask you to consider ending the hunt based on a heavy harvest of females and the lack of knowing what the true population of black bears are in Nevada. If the hunt were to be continued, I would ask that the season be kept at December 1st. For wildlife advocates, it makes a more enjoyable Christmas season. And I do hope that you all were able to look at the change.org petition that was mentioned. We were able to receive about 143,000 people who agree that they would like to see an end of the bear hunt in Nevada. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further public comment in Carson City?
Shannon Green for Nevada Sportsmen's Unlimited, Washoe County. I would like to show our support of the bear hunt as you guys have proposed it today, with a special acknowledgement and thank you for taking into consideration breaking up into units to continue biological diversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further public comment?
My name is Jason Graham with the Nevada Sporting Dog Alliance, and we support the bear hunt. These petitions are misleading, just like the phone call you received. They misrepresent hounding. Hounding to us and many people here that use hounds is much more than just a tool. It's not cruel. It's not unusual. You know, they're part of our families. They mean everything to us. They say that we don't care about the animals we pursue. Without those animals, we can't pursue. That's the whole point of this. It's about the pursuit. It's about the dogs. It's not about the hunter. It's not about killing something. For most of us, 99% of this is a picture, petting our dogs, and moving on. I mean, the hound hunt has been under attack for quite a while, and we've started a group to kind of combat the negative representation that anti-groups are giving hound hunting. Just the other day, I saw a social media post where there are 2 cubs in a tree, and there's a bunch of misleading propaganda next to it, basically saying, somebody shot our mom, we're left all alone in a tree, and we know she loves us, kind of thing. And it's so false. That's not what we're about. We evaluate every animal we do tree and catch. Our dogs are the most important thing to us. It's completely misleading, and the misrepresentation has got to stop, and that's why we have joined together to try and combat that. And we're going to try and educate the public, show them what our dogs are about, show them that we care for the wildlife that we chase and pursue. And the well-being of our dogs and the animals we pursue is 100% the meaning of what we do. Calling it a trophy hunt, you can call it a trophy hunt all you want. Somebody is going to have a trophy at their house, but at the same time, they're going to have a freezer full of meat. They're going to eat well, and every person that I've taken out, if we have harvested, takes the meat out, and it is used. Every bit of it is used. And I appreciate you guys hearing me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next public comment?
My name is Josh Vittori, Washoe County, speaking on behalf of myself. I want to show my support for the department and their recommendations for the 2017. Having personally participated in this hunt in the state of Nevada, I think these are great recommendations of splitting it up into 3 unit groups. I think one point that I either wasn't listening or just hasn't been stated yet today is that this will also help alleviate hunter densities, which is something that I encountered during my experience. Additionally, I think it will help manage where the bears are harvested. I want to speak to consumptive use a little bit because I absolutely ate my bear and enjoyed it. And most of the other bear hunters that I've personally spoken with said that they ate their bear. And when I asked Carl Lackey, he told me the vast majority of bear hunters are taking that meat off the mountain and consuming that. So I think that that's valid, and it's important that everybody understand that this is in fact not just a trophy hunt. This is consumptive use as well. Thank you guys for hearing my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Vittori. Next public comment in Carson City?
Jonathan Lesperance, Washoe County. The Nevada bear hunt's an incredible opportunity to pursue one of our state's really most amazing game animals, and the fact that the population has grown to the point now where we can pursue them is a testament to the success of our North American model of conservation. I would just state we've got one of the longest running black bear studies in the nation. It's estimated that we have between 500 and 600 bears at a annual harvest of 10 to 15 bears. That's perhaps 2 to 3%, well within the sustainable yield of that population. And as noted before, it's not just a genetically isolated population within our geopolitical boundaries, but part of a much larger population. The other thing that I would submit is that hunting in general promotes biophilia, a love for the animal pursued, the habitat it shares, and the other animals that it shares that habitat with. When a person's had an opportunity to hunt a bear and become enraptured with the animal, suddenly you're more concerned with, say, berry production or hard mass production. And when productive pinion stands are lost and riparian areas are lost during fire, it becomes personal because it's a loss of bear habitat. I think if, sorry, a little nervous. The other thing that I would just like to say, I had the opportunity to help a gentleman on his bear hunt this year, and admittedly at the beginning he was unsure about bears, had not really given them, more than a fleeting thought previously because he hadn't had the opportunity to hunt them. But hunting with him 14, 15 days over a 2.5-month season, I noticed that his perception changed substantially about bears. He started to become really intrigued with bears. He was, marveling at their tenacity, resourcefulness, how they raid rodent caches for food, their ability to assimilate protein from recycling ammonia in their kidneys. He would text me these links to biological articles at the end of the hunt. And so I would just say that the opportunity to hunt bears created another bear conservationist. And that's what hunting does in general, is it creates conservationists, people who care not only about the animals we pursue, but their habitat where they live. I would also say that hounds afforded us that opportunity. We observed a number of bears with hounds, and it was an amazing opportunity. So I just like to share that.
Thank you, sir. Further public comment?
My name's Travis Gibson. I'm representing myself. Being a hound hunter myself, I support hound hunting. I support the bear hunt. I like the idea of splitting it up into three separate groups, three separate areas. Hound hunting is the most efficient way to judge a mature animal that needs, should be harvested, versus looking at something 500 yards out on a hillside. You can't really judge how big that animal is, male, female, on a very accurate basis. You get to see a bear, you get to judge how big they are, how mature they are, or if you leave it alone, move on that it's a sow or a immature male. Either way, I support having the bear hunt in Nevada.
Thank you, Travis. Further public comment?
Thank you. For the record, Chrissy Pope with Nye County. Nye County CAB, we did support the resident and non-resident blackberry, their sex, and illegal weapon hunt. And also on a personal note, I own 8 hounds myself. I unfortunately have not drawn a bear tag. I have put it in every year, not only myself but my daughter. My dogs are my life, and they are just like a cattle dog. If they sit in a pen, they'll die. They enjoy the hunt. My dogs eat better than my family does. I make sure that they're well taken care of. They have GPS collars. Hunting with hounds, I have the opportunity to, when that animal's up in the tree and stuff like that, I have the opportunity to shoot or not to shoot. And I'm against, shooting a lot of females and stuff like that, but this hunting with hounds and stuff like that does give me an opportunity to choose that. And therefore, I support it. If we don't manage the bears, how many bears are killed on the highways, and stuff like that? I have, friends that work for DOT. There's more bears killed on the highway than there are hunted, and actually harvested through a hunting season and stuff. If we don't manage these bears and set some quotas and stuff, then, our schools are going to be overran with bears. The children are going to be afraid. They're going to cause traffic accidents. People are going to be killed. So as a hunter and a houndsman of myself, I do appreciate the hunt. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment in Carson City?
Matt Dixon, Washoe County. I'm in support of the bear hunting and the mountain lion hunting. This is the first year that I've been around houndsmen, and I've been very impressed with the professionalism and the amount of dedication that they have in their craft and the work that they go through to make sure that that animal is in fact a male, not a female. They seem to have a ton of pride in taking males only. I just wanted to show my support today in the houndsman hunting and bear and mountain lion. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment, Carson City? Seeing none, I'll take it to Las Vegas. Public comment in Las Vegas?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have public comment. We have 3 members of the general public, and all 3 would like to speak. Go ahead, Lee.
Good afternoon. My name is Anula Wildridge, and I have been asked to represent the Citizens Review Board for the Protection of Animals, which is a large organization in Las Vegas. One of the reasons that many of us move to Nevada is because we appreciate and enjoy wildlife that most of the country doesn't even get to see. We prefer to shoot animals with our cameras instead of weapons, and we feel that there are already many opportunities afforded sportsmen for recreational hunting. We don't really see the need to add bear hunts, mountain lion hunts, and hounding to this list. A former speaker had mentioned about the bear cubs, and hunters really don't know if they've killed a male or a female because the mothers will place their cubs out of harm's way. So it's pretty much too late by the time the bear is killed. These cubs do depend on their mothers for a year and a half of their life, so they're a collateral damage of this hunt, and they can't fend for themselves and will likely perish. So this really is a trophy hunt. I have acquaintances who are hunters, I have relatives who are hunters, and I've asked each and every one of them if they've ever eaten bear meat. They have all said they don't eat bear meat, and they also view this as pretty much a trophy hunt. Furthermore, the use of hounding is pretty much an unfair disadvantage, and it does pose a threat to the dogs as well because of the danger of exhaustion and injury. I understand that hunters value their animals, but there have been injuries to hounds in the past, and those have been documented. And these hunts basically are depriving some of us of our recreational enjoyment because of the fact that Nevada wildlife does belong to all Nevadans. We are opposed to these hunts. Mr. Chair, Shanna Wright for the record. Once again, I got involved with the Nevada Wildlife Commission when they first brought the bear hunt to the public. I didn't even know people existed, this board existed. So I continue to voice my opposition to the bear hunt for all the reasons the other speakers have given. I do appreciate the department breaking down the unit groups so that the overharvesting in Unit 291 can be addressed in the future if this board decides to move forward with a hunt. But I think today is the day to say no more. Hunters have plenty of other prey to kill, and the bears need to have a moratorium on that hunt. I think there's a lot of questions yet to be answered, and I will once again say that I've not heard anything that this is a management tool for black bears. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Myers from Mount Charleston, and as was mentioned by Elaine Carrick, there is a public outcry over the black bear hunt, even though the majority of Nevadans don't even know that there is such a thing as a black bear hunt that's permitted. And that outcry is not going to go away. As she mentioned, there was more widespread sensitivity to this once Cecil the lion was killed in Zimbabwe as a trophy hunt. But since that time, there's been also an outrage over the decimation of our elephants and the sale of ivory. There's also the corporations now are taking note of this public sensitivity in the form of, say, McDonald's now offering cage-free eggs, and companies like SeaWorld with their mistreatment of orcas, and the Ringling Brothers retiring their elephants. This public sensitivity is not going away, it is increasing. And I would hope that the Nevada Wildlife Commission would take note of that fact, and perhaps it's time that Nevada would retire the black bear hunt. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Anything further from Las Vegas?
That closes comment in Las Vegas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and a motion. Commissioner Johnston.
Mr. Jackson, I don't know if you can answer this question, but I noticed the Eureka County cab suggested adding Unit 203 to the bear hunt, and obviously since I live in Unit 203, I'm curious if the department's had any consideration as to opening up that unit to the hunt. And when I think of Unit 203, I really think of the area to the west of Urington over to basically through Smith Valley, what I call the Singatsi Range. I don't know if that's the actual name of it, but Singatsi Peak in that area back there towards Smith Valley. Any considerations to opening that unit as suggested by the Eureka County cab?
Pat Jackson, staff specialist for the record. I'll let Brian chime in if he thinks differently, but I have not heard of any consideration of adding an additional hunt.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, actually, if you consider, conversation amongst biologists, there's always an awful lot of conversation about where the possibilities exist in the harm that might be associated with, adding additional unit. Biologically, from our perspective, if we were to add another unit and we don't increase the the harvest quotas. We don't increase the harvest limit. Biologically, we would not expect any foul, but in respect to the guidance that's been provided to us through the review, the 3-year comprehensive review, largely the guidance that we've been provided is to try and hold things fairly consistent with what we've done in the past, and our attempts at this point with trying to restructure the seasons is to be able to give us a chance to be more give us the ability to adjust and guide harvest into the areas that has received least. So there's certainly been discussion about possibilities. The department has not recommended it as a result of this kind, trying to respect what has been the guidance the commission has provided to the department, and it would certainly be open to discussion on it.
I guess one of the reasons I ask is with the proposed split seasons, for lack of a better term, or what I would expect to be quota setting for the 3 different unit groups, that if you added unit 203 to the 291 hunt, you may alleviate some of that pressure in 291 that you're trying to achieve. Now, I can't say that I've seen bears in that area, but I have to believe they're there, only because of the range that I know where they're at, down through the Sweetwaters and other areas to the south. It seems to me like it might be an option in terms of alleviating some of the pressure on 291.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, certainly we have no evidence to say that there's a great deal of a large number of bears in the area. With, as you suspect, similarly, we wouldn't be surprised if bears are there. We don't have any real accurate census information or even index information at this point in time. Again, those bears move a lot. They've got a lot of movements. Would not expect biological harm from it, but it was not included in the department's recommendation.
I guess another question I have is there's been some suggestion to adding shotgun with rifled slug.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, any change, and I just had a discussion with Chief Warden Tyler Turnipseed, any change regarding legal weapon, it's my understanding that would require a change to NAC.
Commissioner Drew. Just a couple points of clarification. Brian's right in terms of shotgun with a slug. That would take an NAC change. Hounding's in the same boat. Hounding's not covered under the CR we're discussing today. It's part of the NAC that authorized the hunt to begin with. When we did have the bear committee, we discussed Unit 203, and part of the discussion around shotgun with a slug that came up is much of Unit 203 has a restriction in terms of shotgun with a slug, especially in the cultivated areas of Smith and Mason Valley, as you know. And given that shotgun with a slug is not necessarily a permitted weapon at this time, the committee felt that it might be a little bit misleading to open up that unit, knowing that most of it and most of the area where bears may be present would still be disallowed because of that prohibition. So just some background. Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chairman, would you entertain a motion at this time?
No, I think there's still some discussion to be had, at least at this end of it.
Okay, well, we can continue to pick this scab all day, but I'll throw my 2 cents in now. I think out of the respect, these guys have done a good job in working on this proposal. We've listened to it. I've listened to it now for 5 years. We have some differences of opinion around this state as to whether we should have a bear hunt or not. We have one. This is not the proper forum to determine whether we have one or not. It would be the legislature, in my opinion, if you want to ban bear hunting or any other type of hunting. And I think it's very difficult for us to continue asking questions and trying to expand the hunt today. I think they've done a good job in getting us to the point, and I would make a motion to approve this as submitted by the department.
have a second at this time? I have a motion and a second, but I'm sure there's more discussion to be had here. Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So maybe, I mean, we all have our own angles that we come at this from. I do want to address a comment that was made from Mr. Shea. And maybe last year I was sleepwalking as part of the process, but I have a propensity to sleep, obviously. We talked about that earlier. Last year's conversation, we talked about the length of the season. It was a big conversation, and it was maybe one of the weirdest votes I've ever been associated with. You know, we were talking about the beginning of the season. How does hunting the bears affect them help me out here. I'm having trouble physiologically while they're going through hyperphagia. And we started the whole conversation with the concept of ending it earlier, December 1st, because we weren't getting a lot of pressure. They were trying to den. There were some concerns, so we went into that arena. On the front end of it, my concerns have always been running the bears in the heat. It's a tough time of year. They're trying to get into winter in a healthy condition, and we're running them at a tough time of year. So there was actually a conversation, if I'm not mistaken, to start the season later also. And I know that we've had that conversation. That's how we got to September, but it came up again last year. And the reason why the vote was screwy for me was because I didn't know whether to, personally, I think the season should be shorter on both ends. So I'm trying to gauge my commission in a situation where I'm really not in favor of having a season at this point in time. Everybody knows I'm not a fan of the bear hunt for a lot of different reasons. But do I ensure that I shorten the season, that end it earlier? Do I try to start it later, or do I go for both? And the challenge for me was I wasn't sure where my fellow commissioners sat, when really what I would prefer to do is say I'm not in favor of a season, because once you set a season, you're setting quotas for them. You have to put a bear in there. You have to put a quota in there. So for me, I'm not sure if that was the case for me, making the point that to take the month at the end of the year and put it at the beginning of the year. I don't recall ever being that, because I've got concerns at the beginning of the year too. So from a standpoint of a question, where are we at with the bear health going in while we're trying to hunt them through hyperphagia? What does it do to them?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner McNinch, I think the concern that probably is voiced most frequently deals primarily with the effect on their ability to acquire calories when they're in hyperphagia. There hasn't been, to my knowledge, any real conclusive documentation of any individual animal being harassed to the point where it was in a substandard health situation because it was unable to acquire sufficient calories. One could certainly conjure an image where an animal was constantly being harassed and could potentially, under those situations, if it was daily being pursued, daily being harassed, certainly we could conceive of it being an issue. Based on the level of tag setting that there has been within Nevada, based on the movements that we've observed off of radio telemetred animals, often that have these satellite collars that we can watch, and based on the condition of the animals that we're seeing that come in when they are harvested, and part of the rationale for the physical inspection. I don't believe that there's any evidence within Nevada that we're seeing that type of a level of harassment. And when I think about the research that's been published, I can't remember a single documented published event where a particular individual or a particular population suffered to the point where that was indeed the case. And so the likelihood of that occurring within Nevada, I have absolutely no doubt that on a certain day, a certain individual animal may be pursued and may be forced to abandon foraging on a given day. Not every time that hounds are placed upon a trail to try and pursue a bear, not every single time does that bear actually wind up being bayed. It doesn't always get treed, it doesn't always get caught. And so in my best biological opinion, I do not believe that that's an issue with the bear population within Nevada.
Okay, so, well, I'll accept your thought process. I hear what you're saying. Maybe there's some truth to, not every bear is getting chased every day. There's some impact at some level, and we know when they're trying to intake 25,000 calories a day. That's amazing amount of food. That's crazy, and just missing just the one day, one pursuit or any portion of it, it's a lot. And I know, and I'll accept that it happens with any animal that's hunted, and I have a tolerance for that in different ways for other animals. Maybe unfairly, maybe ignorantly, I don't know, but it just seems like there's more of an impact to bears. Their life cycle is a little bit different than some of these other critters from that sense. So, but with that in mind, so here I'm back in the same position because I do appreciate the department coming forward with the split seasons, the areas. I think it's something that needed to be done. So I do appreciate that. So here I'm in a situation for me where I'm trying to decide, do I cast a vote that would indicate that I'm not in favor of this bear hunt, which I have I have a lot of questions on it, and just do this, I'm not supportive of it, or do I make sure that my vote is counted for to reflect that at least I recognize that splitting these areas up and taking pressure off one of these areas is important as well. Making sure that my vote counts towards that if that's what it's going to take to make it happen. So my vote today may very well go that way. It's not a reflection of support for this hunt, but it's a reflection of I perceive that what the department is recommending is better than what we've got now, and I do appreciate that. So.
Commissioner Hubbs.
I'll try to be brief. I know Commissioner Young is tired of these debates, but I just wanted to say, I feel very much like the public needs a voice, and that's the position that I serve. And so today I will not be supporting the seasons because overwhelmingly I continually get the message that this hunt is not supported by the general public. However, that being said, I did like to hear the hunters talk about the hunt and the respect that they have for the animals. I think that's really important, and the control that they have over dogs if we're using the hounds. These types of messages to the public are important, and I do think that over time you do fall in love with the animal that you pursue. I think that really does exist, and you do worry about their habitat and their long-term longevity, and so that serves the enthusiasts that just like to watch them as well. But today I am not going to be supporting the motion, and it's simply because overall the general public does not support this hunt at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hubbs. Commissioner Drew.
Just briefly, I'd like to thank the department for the recommendation before us today. I didn't support going to December 1st last year. I'm still not convinced that it's the best thing, but I think the recommendation is sound at this point. I just wanted to address one thing before we take the vote. We got a lot of correspondence on this on either side in addition to the petition, but it's also been insinuated on multiple occasions that somehow this commission continues to ignore people. And at least for myself, I take that personally. I can see how it could be construed as ignoring people. I'm listening. I might disagree, but I'm certainly not ignoring your input. So I just want to put that, at least in my opinion, that insinuation is false. Commissioner Young.
And I'm concerned that that may be what I'm being construed as, is I'm ignoring, but I'm certainly not. And I think you guys from all sides know it's a tough issue for all of us. But I'm going to go back to what the chairman of the Clark County CAB in my home county, and we're kind of, down in southern Nevada, we don't hunt bears. We don't have them, at least that kind. They hunt a lot of other things, including police officers down there, but which bothers me. But certainly not ignoring it. But I think without the bear hunt, there would not be this discussion at all, because I just wonder who would pay for all this. And I think Paul Dixon made a great point in the Clark County CAB, in as much as that it has certainly facilitated some study, concern for something that is not indigenous to the state of Nevada. I was born in Yerington, Nevada. My dad was born in Fallon. I could go on for 6 generations. There was no bears until recent times, or at least not enough prevalently to cause the issues that we have. And if we have done nothing, we've done at least that. It's certainly not to ignore it. But I could tell you, sitting on this commission, we chew up a lot of time in the actual meeting with very valuable comments and concerns and people's feelings about this. But people are entrenched, just like they are in this country. We're either on this side or that. And at this point, I just go back to what this department, I see how hard they work, how much effort they've put into it, and I support them 200% with this proposal. It's not ignoring them.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. I'm not going to reiterate what most of the commissioners have said. I definitely agree with Commissioner Drew's sentiment. And I think at this point, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Young to approve CR 17-03 2017 black bear season as presented by the department. And there was a second by Commissioner Valentine. And barring any further public or
I do want to make a comment.
one comment, we'll go at one, and then I'm going to call for the question.
I just want to comment, that there's been the request to disallow the use of dogs. I do believe it does offer a benefit, and I believe the benefit it offers is indicative of the age structure of the animals that have been taken. When you look at the average age over the last 3 years, it gives the people the opportunity to evaluate the bear up close. I've hunted behind I'm not a houndsman, but I have hunted behind hounds before, and it is an extraordinarily grueling activity. I was in some of the best shape of my life when I did it, and I felt that I was woefully out of shape trying to go up the mountain. But I do believe it offers a benefit. I do believe this hunt offers a benefit. I believe in conservation through hunting. I'm not going to repeat the comments that have been made, but I believe that having this hunt offers a benefit to the black bear population. And I believe that the use of hounding benefits the overall hunt and the information that we have, and the ability to now be in year 7, I believe, of this. And we have tons of information regarding this population, and we're not having an adverse impact on that population. I think we're having a positive impact on bears in Nevada.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnston. The commissioner is clear with the motion. Call for the question. All in favor, say.
I had one more thing I wanted to say, just real quick. I'm going to support the motion. I would have added Unit 203, but I understand where we're at, and with that, I will be casting my vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes on CR 17-03 7-2 with Commissioners Hubbs and McNinch dissenting. Go ahead, Commissioner Young.
And I would agree with the vice chairman, if he'd actually had seen a bear in area 203 instead of just thinking they might be there. But since you hadn't actually seen them, say no.
Moving on to agenda item number 21, Commission Regulation 17-04, 2017-2018 mountain lion season and harvest limits. Wildlife Staff Specialist Pat Jackson for possible action. The commission will consider adopting 2017-2018 mountain lion hunting season open units, harvest limits by unit group, hunting hours, and special regulations. Mr. Jackson.
Pat Jackson, Staff Specialist for the record. Very briefly, this is what we have done in recent memory. We've had a statewide harvest limit of 245 lions, and that's been divided up into the eastern, western, and southern regions. And then we also have a unique interstate hunt in 091 with Utah, and that was an additional 2 animals. And so far, we've seen no evidence of overharvest based on harvest characteristics. And so what I'm going to be proposing is one statewide harvest limit of 247 animals, 245 for the state, and a unique 2 for the 091 hunt. And now I'm going to tell you why. Andreessen in 2012 was she was a PhD candidate, now has her PhD from UNR, did her PhD on mountain lions south of Reno. One of her dissertation chapters, she took genetic samples from lions harvested around the states and analyzed those and identified 5 different unique genetic subpopulations within the state. And so we snapped those to our management areas and labeled and identified 5 different regions matching what she identified as subpopulations. I'd like to point out, I don't want folks to get caught up in the different unique names, particularly the transient area. That's an area that she didn't identify a unique subpopulation, and instead that's really just animals probably dispersing and moving from A to B. That's not ideal lion habitat, so don't get stuck on the word transient. So we propose to manage mountain lions and setting harvest limits with 2 different thresholds, considering those on a 3-year average. Adult female harvests, an adult would be 3 years or older, and that's identified from pulling a premolar and sending it to a lab to have the seminium age determined. We don't want to see over 35% of our overall sport harvest be 35%, and that's outlined in Anderson and Lindsay, a 2005 paper. And then the overall female harvest of 50%, and that's an APWA recommendation. Before I came to you with this, I went back and looked at the data that we have in hand for both adult female and all female harvests, and these are 3-year averages. And you can see that the transient population did go over the thresholds a few times. It's important to point out a lot of those times those sample sizes were 3 or 4. Again, it's not prime mountain lion habitat, and very little sport harvest occurs there. And then the only other area was the southern area in 2005 to 7 and 2006 to 8. It was barely over the 50% threshold. It was a fairly small sample size, and because adult female harvest was well under that 35% threshold, we're not concerned. So we don't think that we're overexploiting our mountain lion population. I just threw this in here. I recognize it's a little busy. This is what you would see if you looked at the mountain lion CR for this year, and these numbers match up with the different areas, and we are maintaining the same closed units. The mountain lions in those closed units represent, that genetic subpopulation, but we're not making any recommendations on, opening any closed units. And then as far as all the other details, we're not recommending any changes. The harvest limit would still be 1 animal per tag, maximum of 2 tags per person per year. Hunting hours are anytime, day or night. Of course, that can be further restricted by the county. And a hunter or guide needs to contact our 1-800 number to see if the state is open to harvest. I failed to mention, if we do see a trend where overharvest is occurring, the department would like to, or with this recommendation, would in future years recommend a unique harvest limit for a particular area based on indication that we're seeing that overharvest exists. But right now, since we haven't in any time, and we've never closed a southern, eastern, or western region because the harvest limit was reached, we feel that that's an adequate way to manage lions. And so we recommend that you adopt the 1704 regulation as recommended.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, Pat, you mentioned that if you saw what you felt was exploitation in any one of those areas, that you might consider some different prescriptions. So would you do that by hunt management unit like we have at this point, or would you change something to reflect some of the zones that you identified, or population units that you'd identified on the previous map?
So just taking the top row as an example, and I believe that that's the southern unit, we would look at the total number of lions removed in that area and the percent female and percent adult female, and then say, okay, well, we need to be removing fewer than that to prevent overexploitation of females. And so we would have a harvest limit unique to that particular genetic subpopulation.
So your unit groupings there generally follow those
Yeah, they follow the rows,
subpopulation
yes.
boundaries.
Commissioner Hubbs?
Yes, Pat, just a quick question. On the harvest limits, have they grown, stayed the same, or decreased over time?
Pat Jackson, Staff Specialist for the record. I would be happy to share with you the mountain lion update that will be presented at the mountain lion workshop in May. But that said, it has changed so drastically since the inception of harvesting lions that I don't remember all those details. But and that's a public document available to anybody online.
Okay, yeah, that would be interesting to see. And I wanted to know, I'm still confused how the predation numbers fit in with the harvest numbers. And is somebody watching both of those numbers at the same time?
We do look at both of those numbers at the same time, but in an area that we've identified for predator removal under a predator project, it may be our goal in that particular smaller area to have lions at a lower density. And so if we overexploit that population, by removing more females, then that would not necessarily be a bad thing.
Oh, understood. So when you're doing your population estimates, though, you are counting in the removal of those individuals out of areas that have predator management going on?
Yes, every lion either lethally removed or harvested in the state, a form is filled out by generally an area biologist, sometimes law enforcement, or even another employee of NDOW. A premolar is taken for aging, and then also generally a piece of the tongue for a genetic sample, and then that's all sent to headquarters, and the genetic samples are stored and the teeth are sent off annually for aging.
And in general, their season is open pretty much year-round, correct?
That's correct, and that's set forth in NAC.
Okay, in NAC right now.
Yes.
And the reason behind the open season for 1 year, is that because they don't have a certain time in which they den with their young?
Mountain lions do have a birth pulse in the spring, but they can breed year-round, yes.
So if there ever was a time not to hunt, it might be spring? Would that be the time they were most susceptible, just out of curiosity?
On the surface, I would answer that question as yes, but I would also say that our mountain lion harvest is very tied to snowfall, and so when there's no snow on the ground, very few lions are harvested. The lions that are harvested are generally a sportsman with a tag happens to see one, or they're doing some other sort of predator calling activity and just happen to have a mountain lion come in. So I suppose if one was to close the season in the spring to protect kittens, that would be well intended, but I don't know that from a population level it would have any impact.
Thank you.
Further commission comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Jackson. I'll take it out to public comment in Carson City.
Sean Shea, Washoe County. Our cab supported this, but our cab also, well, we supported it 3-2, but there was also a motion to increase the tags per year to 5 from 2, because the harvest limits they're not even getting close. So that was thrown out there, so I thought I'd throw that out there. And I'd like to comment on myself about that springtime that was just brought up. And lions breed all year long. There's kittens all year long. So you can't get just stuck on springtime
or whatever. So I just wanted to clarify that because, you know, I have a little experience with this, so I just wanted to let you know. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean.
For the record, Corey Lytle, Lincoln Cab. You guys know I've been up here before on the same thing, and I think the department's heading in a good direction in terms of the management zones, the 6 management zones. We recommended that there be a harvest limit set in each one of those zones. Keeping in mind, you know, that data's changing year in and year out, and what they've got going on with that. It would be nice to see some of that, and some of that come back in terms of wherever, you know, the animals were harvested, you know, and that's sort of data. We did recommend a harvest limit in those zones, realizing that state, you know, that state limit of 245 is pretty high. It's not a big deal, but I think we're heading in the right direction on it. I'd like to see it in the next couple of years.
For the record, Paul Dixon Clark. We had a split vote, 5-1, in support of this here with a couple of recommendations. Just to point out, the dissenting opinion on this is the naturalist on my board, John Hyatt, felt that we have a majority of mountain lions kit in the February through May 31st time frame, and he felt there should be a closed season for females during that time frame. And he also felt that the harvest objective of 245 for the state was high. And I wanted to make sure that was clear from that opinion because it was voiced by a lot of the public there, but he was the one board member who had voiced it. The other thing that I wanted to say is when you look at CR 17-04, I realize the NAC has 365 days a year, 24 hours a day hunting and dogs. When you look at CR 1704, this is what the public who are getting a tag or other things are gonna pull up when they do things. And I think this CR 1704 should have added to it, and we made the recommendation that it is a 365-day-a-year hunt. You do allow the use of dogs, and the hunt is 24 hours a day. So it's 24/7, 365 days a year. That should be on here, and people shouldn't have to go all the way back to the NAC to see that. It's in the backup material, support material was in the presentation, but I just don't see it on the CR, and that's where I think it should sit, and that's our recommendation to you to make those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next public comment in Carson City. We go. Dr. Moldy, you can come up next.
Jonathan Lesbrance, Washoe County. I'll just say that I'm crazy about mountain lions. I love them, and for anyone that's interested in mountain lions, the work that Allison Anderson's done is entirely fascinating. I would just, as an advocate for hounds, submit that with few exception, all the lions collared for that study and the previous study on lion dispersals and prey were accomplished with the use of hounds. Further, the work being proposed by John Beckman to look at lion and bear interaction, those lions will more than likely be collared with the use of hounds. Just want to say that.
Thank you. Dr. Moldy?
Mr. Chairman, Don Moldy, Reno, Nevada Wildlife Alliance. With respect to the year-round season, although my memory is a bit fuzzy on this, it's not, actually Mr. Shea has made my point from the Washoe Cab, which is there is no month, day, night, evening, morning of the year that mountain lions are free of the potential for being harassed by hunters or houndsmen. So there's no time of the year when they can raise their young or have a protected period of time to engage in family activities. That season is not based on biology, obviously, because otherwise we would be hunting deer all year round and whatnot. This was done as a political move probably 20 years ago at the time when mountain lion tags were sold in grocery stores and service stations, and quotas were outrageously raised in an effort by the commission and sportsmen at that time to kill more mountain lions. That's why the season is a year long. It's not a biology issue. It was a political issue and still is. With respect to Mr. Jackson's assertion that there's no concern about how mountain lion hunting is going currently, and he indicated that there are certain parameters they look at. One he didn't mention, which is of great interest to me, is the result of recent lion research over the last several years by Ken Logan in Utah and also by Professor Wilgus in Washington State, which has taken a different point of view as compared to looking at sex ratios. And what has been found is that mountain lion populations can't sustain a killing rate of more than 12 or 14% of the total population without experiencing a decline. That number seems to be fairly firm at present and is another way of looking at, or perhaps in a way validating what's been used traditionally. Now, if you look at Nevada's numbers since the year 2000, which I just did, out of the 16 years since 2000, actually there have been 4 years out of those 16, or 25% of the time, where we have killed more than 14% of the mountain lions in this state. If you add the sportsman's kill to the depredation kill, which I have done. So this decade, in a way, perhaps doesn't look too worrisome, but if you step back into the 90s, it's a totally different set of numbers. And during that time, I suspect we did much worse. So what I'm arguing is that why don't we include some modern, or let's say current science, one example of which I've just mentioned, in our mountain lion management plan. The other thing that's missing from what Mr. Jackson presented is very clear evidence that the social structure of the lion is extremely important in how it should be managed, and I'm speaking specifically of the resident male, the importance of the resident male. And when the resident male is removed, whether by intention or accidentally, bad things happen. Female lions lose cubs, transient males come through the territory. People see more lions and think there are more when there aren't. Livestock producers have more trouble. All kinds of bad things happen in certain situations when the social structure, i.e. the resident male, is not retained. So it seems to me that in addition to the old methods, looking at kill and looking at sex and age, which is basically decades old stuff, we ought to also include new stuff in our management system, and I don't see it being there. So I've offered you 2 examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moldy. Public comment in Carson City? Push your mic button.
There we go. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and staff, I first want to express my appreciation in the past year that I have been working with the department, that they have been willing to listen. Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn Cullens, representing the Mountain Lion Foundation and its members in Nevada. I want to express my appreciation to the department. I have found them to be incredibly responsive to the questions that I've asked. I have felt that they have taken a good, hard look at, to a degree, how mountain lions are being considered in Nevada, and I was very pleased to see some substantive changes in terms of looking at the implications of the ongoing harvest of mountain lions in the state. And I wanted to express my appreciation to Brian Wakeling and to Director Wassley for listening to my concerns and for providing me with information throughout the year. That said, I still believe that, as Don Moldy just indicated, that the harvest limits are far too high, that in Nevada you are exceeding in many years the recommended recommended by agencies in other states, I might add, limitations on harvest, after which we start to see substantial detriment to the mountain lion populations. Last year, I urged the department to begin development of a comprehensive management plan that could be reviewed periodically and brought up to date. And I think that they've made some real effort towards looking at this more closely, but we're still not at a point where we have good mountain lion numbers. And last but not least, I want to mention that the mountain lion hunt is clearly a trophy hunt. If people are eating mountain lion meat, it's not because they need it for subsistence or because it tastes good. And what we haven't heard in this discussion is what management purpose this level of mountain lion harvest, this continuing level of mountain lion harvest might serve. And with regard to what Don mentioned, the best and the most recent science is showing that heavy harvest, perhaps not over harvest, but heavy harvest actually increases conflicts between people and mountain lions, and between domestic animals and mountain lions. So I'd like to see this continuation of the work that was begun in this past year by the department. And in the meantime, although I understand completely that the commission has no ability to change the season, nor do they have the ability to reduce the number of dollars that are spent in the predator plan, what you do have the ability to do is reduce those harvest limits, and perhaps to establish harvest limits within specific regions and units, as the department seems to be moving towards. So I would recommend a reduction. I would like to see a moratorium until we have good mountain lion health estimates for the state, but very certainly not an increase in the number of tags from 2 to 5, as has been suggested by one of the cabs. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Cullen. Further public comment? Seeing none in Carson City, public comment in Las Vegas?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have comment in Las Vegas.
This is Stephanie Myers from Las Vegas. Thank you for listening to us talk about this particular subject. It seems to me that NDOW and Wildlife Services are very good at eliminating problem mountain lions. And as I've said before, the public has become much more sensitive to the mistreatment, abuse, and the trophy hunting of our wildlife, which, as we all know, belongs to all of us, not just the hunters. And so I hope that you would take a good look at and a good listen to Don Moldy and Lynn Collins, and think about including more science, especially limiting the harvest limits now in Nevada. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, Jana Wright for the record. I would like to see, I certainly would support a moratorium on hunting mountain lions. I would like to see harvest limits put for the different hunt units. And I am curious if there is a report that breaks down exactly where these lions are taken, which hunt units are the lions removed from, and that's my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Any further public comment in Las Vegas?
No, that closes comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission for comment and action. Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on one item, and last year it was suggested, and I think this year one of the cabs had brought it up, potentially opening the Sheldon or Unit 033 for a lion hunt with a zero quota, and I was asked to develop a correspondence to the Sheldon in regards to what it would take to open a hunt, and in an effort to go paperless, and with the help of Director Wasley, we actually just called the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and basically what they indicated is there would have to be a request from the department. That request would launch essentially a planning effort, NEPA analysis. We would have to identify population objectives, purpose and need for the hunt, it would be contingent on whether or not they actually had staff available to do that planning effort. It'd be a multi-year process, even if they had staff available, and there would need to be a bunch of baseline data collection compiled before they could move forward with that. I think last year I stated that I was opposed to opening a hunt unit and having a zero quota. I think it sends the wrong message and creates confusion. I would just reiterate my position has not changed. I would also note that for them to consider such a hunt, they would also have to do a compatibility analysis and make sure that was consistent with basically the purpose and need of why the refuge was put in place in the first place. So, Mr. Wasley, did I miss anything in terms of our correspondence with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service?
No, Commissioner Drew.
Commissioner Hubbs?
Last year, I think when we were dealing with the mound line seasons, I don't want to, my memory's going back, I think it was somebody from the Lincoln County cab, and I'm not 100% sure, so correct me if I'm wrong. One of the cab members was telling me that certain areas of their unit were disproportionately over-harvested, and that certain cats were much smaller than they had used to be in the past. And based on that and some other comments that I was hearing, I wanted to know how easily the unit groups could be split up into smaller groups and managed effectively. Is that something the department can do readily, or is that something that's impossible to do?
Mr. Jackson?
Pat Jackson, Staff Specialist for the record, and I see Game Administrator Brian standing, so I suspect he'll want to chime in. We could manage lions on a unit-by-unit basis. However, with the best available literature, Andreessen et al. 2012, we recommend that we manage on a genetic subpopulation level, which constitutes more than one unit.
And your current unit's based on, so the research that you're relying on, it's not the Andreessen study, that's a new study?
The Andreessen study identified the genetic subpopulations.
And so these unit groups that are clumped together right now are in conformance with some of his findings, I'm not 100%
That's
sure.
correct.
Okay.
Further, Commissioner Holmberg?
Yes, I believe Commissioner Hubbs was, I think was asking if we could do it by the unit groups, not necessarily just the individual unit, but by the unit groups already identified in the study. Could you come up with a quota for these existing unit groups, if I'm not mistaken?
Pat Jackson, Staff Specialist for the record. Yes, we could do that.
Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling. One thing I would add to that, though, it's been argued that many of our harvest limits currently are somewhat arbitrary. If we were to establish them all within those areas, they would be somewhat arbitrary at this point in time. But Mr. Jackson's correct, we could do that.
Further commission questions?
Are there any units, in your opinion, based on what you're seeing, that seem to have lower density or abundance than in the past, or appear to be problematic in any respect as far as having diminishing sizes harvested and such?
Pat Jackson, Specialist for the record. Mountain lions are obviously charismatic megafauna. They are a wonderful animal. They're also very difficult to perform a census on due to their cryptic natures. They have very large home ranges, and they're not abundant as an ungulate. They're much harder to survey. So we, the department, look to other indices like, as I've mentioned, adult female harvest and overall female harvest. However, there are other indices, hunter effort, catch per unit effort, and a slew of other things. And to date, I have not seen anything that compels me to believe that there's any part of the state where we are over-harvesting lions.
That answer your question?
Yes, it does. I just was, wondering what the appetite would be to manage in those specific units by quota or number. I mean, is that something the commission's interested, or do you want to just keep it at the number for all units as is?
Commissioner Holmberg, do you have a comment?
Oh, I think, I don't think it's critical. I think they can wait and get the data first, and if it warrants it, then can go that way. That's for sure. I don't think they need to start at an arbitrary level. That they are very, very transient in nature, and so it needs to be established that data first.
Director Wasley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to Commissioner Hubb's question, the department has some history in doing that. It may have been 10 or 12 years ago. Those quotas were managed by a hunt unit. And so we went from a hunt unit to a regional quota. So it's changed historically. The guidance to go to the regional quota was in the state lion management plan. Certainly the home range size of these animals, if you manage a quota at a management area, is it an appropriate scale? Those management areas were designed to encompass what was largely viewed to be the home range size, all the seasonal ranges of mule deer. You ask a question about seeing an area that has disproportionately low or high population. The population of those lions is largely dependent on the population of the prey base in there. So as prey base fluctuates up and down, lion density fluctuates up and down. Lions follow those animals. They have huge home ranges. So we didn't have problems with it at that smaller scale, but it wasn't a biologically accurate determination, I guess. And so it's been broadened out, and now we're basing it on some very legitimate science that is put forward in this recommendation.
I was wondering too, because in terms of what I was hearing at that time from the CAB member was that certain areas, I want to say in Lincoln County, and I could be wrong, that are easier to get to or easier to come in and hunt. They have noticed in the field that the size of the cats are getting smaller and smaller year by year, and I don't know if that's being detected, if we're just lumping it all together, because what you would see maybe is more numbers taken from a certain area, and that could be why you were seeing smaller cats out in the field. That's all I was thinking.
And based on some of that past experience, when we went from the hunt unit scale to the regional scale, the first year we went to that regional scale, we had one hunt unit, Area 7, where we had 45 mountain lions harvested from that one unit in the first year that we went to that regional scale. Subsequent years, the following year we didn't have the harvest. We dropped down to something like 5 or 6, maybe 7 animals, and so it was self-regulating in the sense that it's a more accurate biological representation of animal distribution, and it was self-regulating both in terms of lion population, ungulate distribution, and hunter distribution. Or that was our determination, that was our assessment.
Commissioner Drew.
May I chime in? Pat Jackson,
Yes.
Staff Specialist for the record. In conversations with Staff Specialist Russell Woostenhom, who used to, I suppose is my predecessor, he observed that when you place a smaller restriction on a smaller area, not always, but at times people will be like, I need to hunt my favorite area before that's reached. And so there's a potential to actually increase harvests when you manage on a smaller scale.
Further comments from the commission, or I'm looking for a motion? Commissioner Valentine?
Thank you, Chairman Wallace. I'll make a motion to approve CR 1704, Open Management Units and Harvest Limits 2017 Mountain Lion Season, as presented with one addition in that under the asterisk, hunting hours are any time or day that we add, and 365 days per year.
I have a second by Commissioner Almberg. I have a motion by Commissioner Valentine and a second by Commissioner Almberg to approve CR 1704 as presented, with the exception of adding 365 days per year to the hunting hours any time of day or night. Commissioner Drew?
I think we got to be a little bit careful with the 365 days a year addition, because if for some reason we were to reach that harvest limit, the season would be closed. So we probably need to add 365 days a year unless or until the harvest limit is met, something like that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, Brad.
the NAC specifies that the season will be 365 days unless the harvest limit is achieved. And so, as part of the motion, it's probably unnecessary.
So along those lines, would it make more sense to simply reference the NAC than try and rewrite something and make an inadvertent error? I see Ms. Hollinger standing up, so maybe she can clarify.
I have a quick question. I thought the tag has the valid dates of the tag on it. So if you apply for the tag and get it, it tells you the valid dates of your tag, and it's hunting hours or any day or night. So I don't think people should be confused. The only issue is then, as set forth in CR 1704, you need to call the number to make sure the hunt is still open. There should be no confusion as to hunting dates because you have your tag in hand.
Commissioner Allenberg?
I agree with Brad. There is none. It's just a matter of having it in the same place, I think, for Paul. And I didn't see that as being an issue either.
Mr. Chairman, Maureen Hellinger for the record. The season is stipulated in NAC 502-370, begins March 1st and goes through February 28th unless the harvest limits are met. When we print the tag at the time of sale, the system actually starts the start date for that particular person so that it's the balance of that season from our PCPOS system at our license agents. Because if they're buying it in June, March 1 through June has already gone by. So it will print for the valid period that they've got left. So it's not really a 365 hunt, it's for the valid period in the NAC, which is March 1 through February 28th. It's much like our annual licenses, which will print from the date of sale through the end of February.
Commissioner Young?
And on the tag, it says to call the number, right? That's the responsibility of the tag holder.
That is the responsibility of the tag holder. It is in the NAC. I don't believe it prints on the PCPOS tag because of the limited space, but our manual tags. But it is in NAC and it is in the regulation, and they should be aware of it. Much like some of our regulations for other species. The other point I would like to make in regards to Washoe County's recommendation for 5 tags, we are limited to 2 in NAC.
Thank you, Maureen. Commissioner Valentine?
I was just trying to make it clear from what the cab comment was. I didn't mean to create all kinds of problems here. In that case, what I'll do is reinstate my motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve CR 1704, Open Management Units and Harvest Limits 2017 Mountain Lion Season as presented.
Is the second okay with that?
And yes,
okay.
I second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Valentine and a second by Commissioner Allenberg to approve CR 17-04 as presented. Is the commission clear with the motion? I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously, 9-0. Now for a quick decision here, what's the flavor of the commission for lunch versus power on?
Yes, lunch.
I'm in favor of lunch, so let's do lunch until 1:45.